evening, everyone. Hope your Wednesday has been treating you well, especially in hopes of tomorrow beginning the new year. And so it's kind of crazy to think another year has went away and we're about to embark and endeavor into a completely new year. But I hope and pray that 2025 has been a blessing for you, but I especially pray may 2026 be a year that is full of amazement and wonder and being able to see God moving on your behalf. And so this evening, just as we kind of begin to conclude and wrap up the current year of 2025, there was something that kind of came to my mind as just a point of thought for the ending of the year, but as well going into the new year, is kind of what is the overall outworking of where our hearts are? What exactly does it look like for our hearts to be able to make decisions, to be guided by decisions? You know, the ambience of the things going on around us. How do we put all those things together? And I think of it kind of like this. I love sports in general, but baseball and basketball have always been I would say the top two sports that I watch on a regular basis. And on that side of it, you know, whenever I think about basketball in particular, everybody loves basketball in that they love the offensive side of it. They love the ability or the option of, you know, shooting a basketball, you know, playing horse in the, you know, the backyard with the kids kind of thing, or, you know, whatever, being able to play, you know, different games, stuff like that. Offense seems to be a very focal side of why people like basketball. But it's not just the offensive side of it that makes basketball great. I think that it's just as much, if not more important, it is more important to have a good defensive game. See, one of the things that I think about whenever it comes to basketball is just simply the idea that it's great if you can shoot a basketball, but the goal is to keep your opponent from scoring. And the best way to keep them from scoring is to what? Have a really good defensive game. And that's more or less what I want to kind of challenge you for, is in walking into the new year, thinking about even 2025, what it's looked like, and what is going to forecome in 2026. I want you to think, what does your defensive game look like right now, and what can it become on into the future? In Proverbs 4, looking in verse 23, it says, "Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life." So here is just the challenge that I want you to think about, okay? Solomon is saying and encouraging the people that are reading this, of course, to guard your heart with all diligence. Let's think for a moment about who Solomon is and kind of where he's coming from. And even as I kind of preached on and alluded to on Sunday this last week, but thinking about Solomon and who he is and all that he has seen. I mean, he has witnessed a lot, the building of the temple. He's been able to, you know, share a lot of great moments between him and God, early on especially. Of course, as he begins to go into his ministry or into the kingship, and a few years begin to pass by, eventually wealth and just adultery. I mean, a lot of things begin to flood in and fill Solomon's life, and to which I would say for a lot of people, I think we'd all find ourselves in the same boat. It is depressing. It'll bring you down. See, thinking about the ways of this world, to hold on to this world so tightly, even as Solomon did, and even as we do today, to hold on to the world tightly can bear a lot of issues and a lot of problems. Why? Because we begin to look like the world. We'll begin to identify with the things of the world. That is, we're overridden with anxiety or depression. We find alternative ways to find peace in our hearts, whether that's through drugs and alcohol and all kinds of different things. We find ways to mitigate the pain that we are walking through, just like Solomon did. And in essence, it creates, instead of a smaller dark hole that we're going down, it actually vastly opens up and it becomes a whole lot larger. To which, at that point, that's what I'm saying, is the more we look like the world and walk in the ways of this world, the deeper that hole gets, and the farther and farther we find ourselves slipping away into the deep abyss. I don't know if you've ever been faced or challenged with a time to where you found yourself kind of slipping off, and you can see and feel it, you know it, that where you were a week ago is not where you are right now. I know that I've been there in my life. There have been times to where I've been so spiritually present with God that it feels like Jesus' presence or God's presence is literally in the room with me. I felt and I know of what it means to, feel that the air is so thick, just that, you can feel this overwhelming presence of God. I've been at the exact opposite to where it feels like I couldn't get any further from God. There are these moments that overshadow our lives, and I have to realize and admit, to even confess before you, is that the moments that I felt close to God, it was because I was doing the things of God. I was praying, I was studying, I was doing the things that ultimately led to that closeness. Whenever I was far from God, what was happening? Just like Solomon, you begin to chase that rabbit down that hole, and then before you know it, there are things, and you're walking in things that have nothing to do with God whatsoever. In fact, you're even potentially at a place to where you're saying, God, I don't even care. That's rough. That is hard. But here for Solomon, think of what he's saying. Keep your heart with all diligence. Whenever he says, keep your heart with all diligence, he's saying guard it. You've got to protect it. So in the Bible, we identify a lot of, and especially kind of coming into the New Testament, of the Greek word cardia, which is where we gain our word cardiology from, if you have to go to the cardiologist or whatever concerning your heart. But in biblical times, the heart was and dealt in the seat of emotion. It was central to all things, to which I would say, to a large part, it's still the exact same today. Your heart is what is in control, so to speak. If your heart is not pumping, it is not going to send and carry blood. It's not going to carry oxygen into your body, into your life. And so what is going to happen? Everything else will begin to shut down. Now stop and think about how this central point of understanding out of Solomon, even for us today, of regards to what the heart is and what role and functionality it plays within the life of the person. If we are not guarding and protecting our hearts, what is going to happen? It's going to begin to shut down. We are going to become deprived of oxygen, so to speak, and the availability to breathe and find peace, hence anxiety, depression, struggle, strife, all these things. Solomon is coming to the conclusion of saying, if you keep your heart with all diligence, you're going to protect it. You're going to guard it. You're not going to just let anyone have access to it. From a relationship standpoint, I would say that that's extremely true. From a spouse, or even for if you're watching this and you're younger and maybe you're not married, to where you're dating potentially, I would say that this even qualifies that. Do not let your heart just go to anybody. Don't just let anybody have access into it. You have to protect it with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Why? Because it is your heart that is going to potentially cause issues for you. Think of what Solomon said in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. He said, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Now, why would this perplexing question of why should I not lean on my own understanding, is because my understanding is jaded. It can be manipulated. It can be construed, so to speak, into this place or this point of my life to where I know I shouldn't do something, but I'm going to anyway. Because maybe we don't have the discipline. Maybe we don't have the right spiritual awareness in that moment. Maybe we're not built up enough to where we can guard and protect against the things of this world. We are easily captivated by many things in this life. Just as Solomon, even with his 700 wives and concubines and the fortune and the fame of anything and everything anybody would ever want, even in those things, what do we find? He was still miserable. Hollywood, let's go with that. You have a bunch of people that say, "Oh, I've arrived, I've made it at the top," but yet they're on drugs, they're doing alcohol, or they're doing drugs, they're drinking alcohol. Their lives, maybe on the camera, are good to go, but off the camera, they are as miserable as the day is long, but yet they claim they have a great life. That to me is not a great life. I could care less about all those things. But there again, guarding and protecting your heart, it's saying, God, I don't want the things of this world. Solomon's saying, I've had the riches, I've had the fame, I've had the women, everything else. This is Solomon saying, who cares? My heart in being right with God is what Solomon's saying right here is more important and needs to be more important than anything else. So can I ask you, are you right now guarding and protecting your heart? Because it's a 24/7, 365 job. It is a constant thing to guard and protect your heart. But notice what he says after that. He says, keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life. So the deeper the world has its grips in you, the worse off it's going to be. You know, we've been blessed to live in a few different places to where there are creeks or rivers or streams running by, and you can often tell a lot based on what is in the creek in the water. Anytime the waters got high and it began to flood, I mean, you would see garbage and trash, you'd see tires, I've watched outbuildings flow down a stream or a creek because it was flooding. I kid you not. But yet, in the reality, thinking about this is where Solomon is coming to. He's saying, keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life. He's saying there's got to be a source of keeping pollutants out of the water, out of your life. You've got to have a safety net. You've got to have a screen, so to speak, or a protector that keeps things from happening to your life. You have to have a line that you draw in the sand. You know, whenever it comes to protecting our hearts, there's a difference between having a guarded heart and a hardened heart. A guarded heart and a hardened heart. See, a guarded heart begins to make it known you don't have readily, easily, accessible access into my heart. A hardened heart says, who cares what happens? You know, I'm not naive enough to realize most people, they fall into one of two categories. One, you're either guarding it, or number two, you're a hardened heart towards it. It's just whatever. But as we think about 2025 and where we've been versus 2026 and where we're going, can I ask you, out of the heart spring the issues of life, keeping your heart faithful, pure, holy, consecrated before the Lord. Can I just cause you or ask you to think about how is that going to happen? In 2010 there was a family that got caught up in the earthquake and the devastation in Haiti. And you talk about just one of those instances that, with this particular family, it was so just crazy of what they were going through. So you think about in January, whenever that earthquake hit Haiti in 2010, or maybe you've never seen it or know about it, I go and research it. It completely devastated everything. There was a family that was found in Haiti, and in the midst of the devastation and trying to do something else, they finally were able to find, their family in South America, get a hold of them, and their family in South America said, hey, why don't you come and live with us? And so whenever they did that, a few weeks later, they ended up leaving Haiti, and they ended up making their way to the nation or the country of Chile, okay? And so in January of that same year, there again, you're talking just a couple of weeks together in January 12th of 2010, and then 2 weeks later on the 23rd, this family arrives in Chile, and whenever they get down there, just after a month, literally about 6 weeks later, Chile ends up having a record-breaking earthquake in literally 6 weeks later than what they experienced in Haiti. Sometimes I feel like that's what our lives feel like, is we leave one circumstance to go to another, and then it just feels like bad things follow us. Or, can I just say easily, life happens. Life is going to happen no matter what. No matter how much you and we try to guard and protect our hearts, to keep our hearts with all diligence, because out of it spring the issues of life. No matter how much we try to guard and protect it, life is going to happen. Things are going to take place. And the real concern, the real thing and the point of wisdom I would encourage us all to ponder on right now is to say, how do we respond in those things? How do we react? Whenever life happens, do we buckle down and we say, okay, I've got to be prayed up and studied up more. I've got to be more aware. I've got to be hyper vigilant, actually, instead of just being lazy and just emotionless. How deeply do we seek to say, okay, God, according to 1 Corinthians 6, the temple is the dwelling place, and in me, my body is a temple, and you're dwelling within me. How am I going to guard and protect my heart simply because the Spirit is dwelling in me? How am I that screen protector from the world breaking in and getting into Christ, into the Holy Spirit? How am I doing my best to keep the sanctuary of God holy and pure? I hope and pray that for 2025, maybe you've had your guard down. Maybe, you haven't been playing the best defense. Maybe you love offense but not defense. I would encourage you, whenever it comes to 2026, what does your defensive game look like? How are you going to be hyper vigilant in order to say, God, those things that once took me out, they're not going to take me out again. Those things I used to fall trap to, I'm not going to do it now. Maybe my anger, my frustrations, my short temper, my drinking, the drugs, all these things, maybe it's just a point of simplification of saying, how are you going to quit playing offense and start playing defense? And you're going to begin to take control of those things. I would encourage you to spend time praying with the Lord, being able to say, God, help me to have a defensive game for 2026. Because this year maybe it's fallen apart, or maybe there were holes within my protection that I just wasn't paying attention to. Satan is looking for easy access into your heart and your life. And I would encourage you as much as I can, don't let him win. I hope you all have a great and wonderful evening. I hope you all are safe. I hope you are able to ring in the new year with your family and friends, whatever. But most importantly, I would say, may God be our guide and our vision for 2026, that we seek to honor him in all that we do. But I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for everything. And I'm looking forward to what is to come in 2026. So, all right. We'll see you guys later. Thank you, guys.